Iowa State is now in the most expensive and exclusive Power 4 conference. That's right. The Big 12 has turned down Memphis' $200+ million offer, saying that, yeah, schools that are in here right now, like Iowa State, are more valuable. We're talking about it today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day, making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know, whether you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform or watching here on YouTube. Be sure to hit subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, we are talking about Memphis trying to get into the Big 12. What happened? What does this mean for the Big 12? That'll kind of be the first segment. We'll talk a little bit about Iowa State in there as well. The perception probably of Iowa State. Was this the right play? This could be maybe not so good for Iowa State. We'll talk about that. And then we're going to talk about what should the Big 12 do? What should the Big 12 actually target to further grow the league? Or I suppose who should they target? And then finally, we're going to talk about Iowa State being overlooked yet again. I know this seems to be a bit of a common theme this offseason. I don't love it either. All right. I don't love it either. But I'll kind of talk about why I don't know if I necessarily agree with what's being put out there right now. Can't wait to dive into all that more. But first, this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Now, let's dive into this Memphis situation here because this is a very interesting this is interesting type of situation. Like, wow, I can't believe really either side of this when you lay it out. If you haven't heard, Memphis proposed a $200+ million offer to join the Big 12. And the Big 12 literally said in response, quote, not interested, end quote. First off, that feels like a drop mic, like we're really cool type of response. So it's pretty cool to be a part of that conference. Nonetheless, let's break down exactly or at least very closely, as best as I understand it, what Memphis offered first, and was the Big 12 in the right? Did Iowa State kind of lose in this situation? We'll cover it here in a second. So, essentially, Memphis begged the Big 12 to let them in, and I mean it. Like, they genuinely got on their knees and offered up everything they had in their possession and said, please take it, just let us be your friend. And the Big 12 said no. Big 12 said we're not going to roll that way, dog, or tiger, I guess. Anyway, Memphis effectively gave a no-risk concept offer. This is per Ross Dellinger, who did another fantastic job breaking down this report. The school, being Memphis, would take zero distribution for 5 years. Okay, they would not receive any Big 12 money for 5 whole years. Okay, when I read that, I already have question marks already. But I mean, if I'm the Big 12 listening to their offer, I'm like, well, does that mean you're not providing it? Like, why? Okay, it just feels like if you're going to provide a ton of value, you're going to want some back. All right, we're already off to a weird, roughish start. Ross Dellinger continues on by saying they would add in sponsorships as much as $3 million annually to each Big 12 schools. Basically revenue. So Iowa State, a school that is pretty public about struggling with money, would receive an extra $3 million. Think that would probably be a pretty big deal from the Big 12 there. That could definitely contribute towards a lot of things in Ames, Iowa. It's just three extra $1 million. It's what it is. It's just free, effectively, right? There's a new team in the conference, but walk away with $3 million. You give me $3 million? You can even imagine having $3 million? Can you hold $3 million? Like, I was going to say in one hand, but I don't know. Probably not one hand. Do you think you can hold $3 million in your hands? Probably not. Unless they made like $1 million bill, then there'd be 3 of them. That'd be pretty easy. You could do that in one hand. And finally, this is probably the craziest portion of this. This one really set it over the edge for me. Memphis says that they subject themselves to expulsion if after 2030 the Big 12 deems that it is not adding value, which is a pretty much a completely subjective thing. So the Big 12 can just be like, "Yep, we don't think that there is no number that they have to hit or stay under or anything." It's just literally like, what does the Big 12 think? Uh, no, okay, you're gone. So a wild offer here from Memphis. The way that I perceive this is they literally they wanted it so bad that they just like went too hard. I feel like I don't know exactly what the best situation in real life would be. It might be like fantasy football. Let's say fantasy football, where it's like you can have literally every player on my team if you give me the guy who got picked 1-1, right? As the guy who's taking the pick at or who would be receiving the whole team, giving away the 1-1. What is like? Why are you offering me all these players? It feels like you're offering too much now, where it's like maybe you don't have any value. You're just kind of fluffing it up with all this extra like, oh, this must be good because I'm receiving 15 players for one guy. But when you look at it, what are you actually receiving? Not the best analogy, but pretty dang close. Where it's like, okay, Memphis, you're going to come into our league. You're going to be here for, till 2030. So what, 5 years? You're not going to make a cent from our conference. You're going to pay everyone. And then when the 5 years are up, we can just kick you out. What I just don't, what is the angle here? What are we getting out of this? Other than, I guess, the millions, the 200 and $250 million. What are we actually gaining as a conference on a conference level? It doesn't look great for Memphis. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think Memphis is maybe the worst team ever. I just don't feel like they're really elevating the play of the Big 12. I don't think if the Big 10, the SEC are looking over like, ooh, I don't think they're going, oh, dang it, the Big 12 got Memphis. I don't know how we're gonna respond. Like they would probably laugh a little bit, like, wow, you guys added Memphis. Now, obviously, the additions of UCF, Houston, Cincinnati, not exactly head turners either. Okay, so I'm not saying that the Big 12 latest additions have been A+ top notch additions. I think those were necessary additions. I do. But I just don't feel like following it up with Memphis sets the tone for what the conference is very well. Just me personally. Me personally. Was this the right move for Iowa State? Well, we remember how the last game against Memphis went. So there's that. As far as the money side of things, honestly, this was the right play. I know this is shocking, but I don't think that degrading the value of the Big 12, at least in my eyes, is worth $3 million. I don't think Iowa State benefits from that over the long term net gain there. I think that this would end up being net negative, even though you get the $3 million cushion. It's like, is $3 million really the difference between Iowa State and Arizona State right now? Because if it is, okay, you win your conference handedly, all right, like you make it into the playoffs. If not, you come up short, and now the perception of the Big 12 is, well, they're playing teams like UCF, Cincinnati, who have had success in the past, I understand. But Memphis, like, it's turning into more of the American, right? Like, what is the conference really? What level are they really on? We're already having those conversations of the Big 12 isn't quite up to that standard. I don't think I would want a team like Iowa State, who is absolutely on the rise, to be subjected to, from a committee. If Iowa State is on that line of, are we going to let them into the playoff or not? Are they 12 or 13? Are they 16 or 17? If Memphis is in the conference, I don't think that helps them. I just don't think it helps their case. And that's just me. Maybe I'm being naive. Do you think that this helps the Big 12? Or would it have? Obviously, they said no. If they would have brought in Memphis, would the Big 12 have been better off for it? I don't think so. I think it's pretty far and away. The Big 12 is better without Memphis. And it was just like a weird, like, take all of our money. Like, what? I understand where Memphis is coming from. You kind of got to get out of those non-power fours if you can. But boy, I don't know if they went about it the right way, because it's a no from us, dog. It's a no from us. But who could the Big 12 add? because I think they need to make moves. I really do. And we'll talk about that coming up here right after this. Do you ever wish that managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So, in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Me personally, it made it so easy to find out where I was just continuously spending small amounts over and over. All right. Those $4 protein bars, yeah, one of them's not a huge deal. But when you see them stack up right in front of your eyes in the app, yeah, you see exactly where all of that is going. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. So the Big 12 said no to Memphis, and I'm not shocked. And I don't think that was the wrong play. I think that was probably the right play. That's the best way to say that. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And the question becomes, for me, when I saw this news, if the Big 12 isn't going to take on Memphis, what are they going to do? Because we can't just sit around here and just twiddle our thumbs and say everything's fine. I don't think everything's fine. I think everything would be fine if we got more than one team into the college football playoff last year. I think everything would be fine if we weren't perceived as this, like, maybe the worst of the four conferences, depending on who you ask. If you ask anyone from the ACC, you're definitely getting that the Big 12 is the worst conference. Big 10, they might pick the ACC. I think the SEC might lean. You're probably going 50-50 there, but I don't know. Let me know if you're a fan of one of those conferences down below. Who do you think is the worst conference? Either way, it's usually not the Big 10 or the SEC that are like, oh, which one's the worst? It's the Big 12 or the ACC. It's kind of divided. So I don't personally think that the Big 12 is in the best spot they can be. Okay. That's just where I'm at. Okay. So what can the Big 12 do? Well, the Big 12 as a conference can really only bring people in. I guess I don't technically know how it would work if, hypothetically speaking, the Big 12 were to create what if they created the Big 22 and it's like the Big 10 and the Big 12 like created this merge and both leagues like still simultaneously exist, but it's this power league, something weird. And of course they did the Big 22 because Big 10 plus Big 12. And if my math is right, 10 plus 12 is 22. I'm not certain on that. Anyway, my point being, like, the Big 10, 12 or whatever, I don't know how that would work, but the way I am looking at it, the only thing that the Big 12 can do as a conference is bring in other teams. Now, from Iowa State's perspective, things get really dicey there. We'll cover that here in a second. But who would they like to bring in? Who should they bring in? Well, I think it's pretty clear. It shouldn't be a team like Memphis. Okay. It shouldn't be a team. And really, it probably shouldn't be a non-Power 4 team. I think that's probably, at this point, it's a no-brainer. And I know that that's tough. I know that sounds a little harsh. It sounds like we're picking on the little guy a little bit. But the Big 12 is already kind of like, we're on thin ice a little bit here. That's how I'm going to put it. I don't think you can really play that game much longer of like, how many small guys can we put in our conference to where this is like, is this still even a power conference? If you add in, UNLV, UC Irvine, throw in Gonzaga and UConn were both in that conversation. Now, basketball side I think is very different, but football, how good was UConn? I guess UConn football wasn't actually terrible last year, but I'm pretty sure they had like a record year. And I don't know if I'm allowed to sing that, but now I kind of want to. My point being, how many guys can we add below where we are as a average conference before things get dicey? Now, I do think that the Gonzaga and the UConn would have been, obviously, that's a basketball move. That makes sense. But I think outside of really those two, In the Big East, you can make an argument there for basketball. I get it. There are a lot of really good basketball schools out there, but I do think that the Big 12 probably needs to focus on football, probably needs to pull from the Power Four. So what does that mean? Well, the ACC is kind of like where they're going. I think that probably makes the most sense. I think you kind of have to pull the best from the ACC, the other conference that is perceived as like at your level. Like how many Big Ten schools are, I don't know. I don't know for sure. But looking at the ACC lineup, you've got like your Clemson. That's going to be a team. Like your Miami's. That's going to be a team. Duke, look at them for basketball. A little bit of a different situation for sure, but very much in that conversation. UNC, obviously basketball, but Bill Belichick, how long is he going to be there? Right? What about Virginia? We've got some dogs coming over from Virginia. Blake Buchanan. Huh? So I think when you look at the ACC, it's easy to also forget about Florida State, but I think they could be in this conversation too. They just had a wild year last year. Wild year last year. Pretty entertaining. Not ideal for them. I think when you look at the ACC, the top three that I think the Big 12 would like to have would be Clemson, Duke, and Miami. That's probably my top three because you're going to get the most out of Duke, I think, from both football and basketball. Personally, I think the Miami, like everything about the U, the market there. I get it's East Coast, but Clemson, Death Valley, those are three really solid programs. I don't know. You could probably argue that maybe those aren't your top three, but I don't think you could tell me that any one of those schools, the Big 12 gets worse with adding, other than maybe Miami, because they've been kind of weird. They've been kind of odd. And Clemson kind of fell off once the transfer portal started to exist. But, like, who else are they going to add? Maybe Louisville. I don't know about that one much as the other ones. BC, is Boston College in there? Virginia Tech, awesome walkout. Outside of that, are we really having that conversation? Pitt would be good for the rivalry with West Virginia, but I don't know if it's really worth much outside of that. NC State seems to be really good. Every now and then, everyone remembers their magical run with DJ Burns. Gosh, if I just messed up his name, I'm really going to hear about it. But in the March Madness tournament, that was so much fun to watch. UNC, still very good. Very good, not like perfect, of course. Obviously, the conversation last year, but with Bill Belichick, I think if you're going to go football and basketball, Duke is probably in there. And I know that I'm going to hear about how they're not the best football team, but there's not going to be a ton of teams that are going to be like top of the food chain like Iowa State is in football and basketball. Iowa State's just really good at football and basketball. Honestly, a lot of the Big 12 schools, like, kind of really good at both versus like the SEC. And yes, it's changing a little bit with like Alabama. But like, look at Georgia. Is Georgia really good at basketball? Would they win like 3 games last year? Like, no, they're not. They're good at football. That's kind of their thing. So you're not really going to find a good balance, but I think Clemson, Miami, Duke makes sense. I think there are some other good schools in the ACC. I do think that additions in basketball are going to kill the Big 12, like Gonzaga or UConn. I don't think that that's going to end the conference. I don't know how much it helps the conference. It definitely doesn't help them on the football front. Does it help them on the basketball front? I think so. We can't just completely forget about that. But at the same time, I do wonder which one would be more important, which one would drive more decisions, football or basketball. I mean, what's worth more, selling out a Clemson stadium to the Big 12 or selling out a home UConn basketball game? I guess a deep run in the playoffs, maybe that's different. Either way, I think Iowa State is like that perfect mix of both worlds. That's why we're in the Big 12. That's why we weren't declining. That's why we're still hanging out. However, there is a conversation where, Iowa State's not going to be very good this year. And Mr. Joel Klatt didn't quite go down the avenue I thought he was going to. So we'll talk about that here in a second and why I think he's wrong here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Joe Klatt ranked the top 5 college football teams he's buying stock in for 2025. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Kind of want to button this up even a little bit further, but it makes me look almost like a vampire if you're watching here on YouTube. Shout out. It's free to subscribe down below. Sorry, like what? Joel Klatt, the reason I say that is because I feel like we got to get professional if we're going to talk like this. He looks so fancy in his little suit there. Just because you're fancy doesn't mean you're right. Okay. Joel Klatt's buying stock in these 5 teams. Clemson, the team we just got done talking about, joining potentially the Big 12. Allegedly, maybe down the road, my opinion. Michigan. Okay. Utah. Seems like a Big 12 team. All right. Washington, the Huskies. And North Carolina, UNC. Another team we just got done talking about. Well, sorry, Joel. You're wrong. UNC, this is just purely, and now don't get me wrong, I'm a Patriots fan. I love Bill Belichick. I pretty much owe him not being the laughingstock of middle school. All right. Everyone knew that guy who rooted for the Cowboys, the Patriots, very good. And I am forever thankful for what he did with New England. But I just don't see how that directly means that this year at UNC, he's going to be the greatest coach of all time. Keep it moving. That's 5. Washington at 4. Really? We're putting Washington ahead of Iowa State? Okay, whatever. Utah, wow, that's a shocker. Kyle Whittingham, very good coach. Major disappointment in 2024. I would say that that's accurate, just reading this line here. I wouldn't have put them probably in here. Michigan, everyone's going to pick Michigan, just like they are. All right, that's going to happen. And Clemson has been wild, kind of all over the place. It feels like they disappeared, and then they win the ACC last year. Buying stock in a team, to me, just seems like Iowa State went to the Big 12 championship game. Okay. Iowa State lost the Big 12 championship game. Not really in a particularly close fashion either. It's kind of a beatdown from Arizona State. Then they do win against Miami. Okay, so there is that. But if you're going to buy stock in a team, you got to buy them low, right? I don't think you can take Clemson here. That's my argument against Clemson. Utah, that's a phenomenal pick if you're trying to buy at rock bottom. Okay. But if you want the most growth, the biggest upside, Iowa State, not a conference champion. All right. Now, I understand that not everyone on this list was a conference champion, but not a conference champion. And my projection is a college football playoff game winner this year. I think that Iowa State has the potential to go back to the Big 12 championship game, win it, go to the college football playoff, and win a first-round game. That's what I think. I don't know. Am I out of the box for that one? I don't think so. Are you serious? There's too much riding for Iowa State to fizzle out and to not make the the Big 12 championship. In my mind, there is no way that Iowa State does not make the Big 12 champion. It would have to, all of the dominoes would have to fall in the exact way for Iowa State to just come up short. I think that they got significantly better at the tight end and the linebacker position. You might see a half a step back at the wide receiver, but you're going to see progression in the running back and the quarterback, obviously in Rocco for sure. I think the secondary got better, and I think, honestly, the defensive line might make one of the biggest jumps on the team. If the team that was in the Big 12 championship game last year got better at almost every position except for maybe wide receiver, and that's just because it's a question mark, can you confidently tell me that they won't be back? You can't say oh, they're definitely not going to be back. No, you could say, well, we're not really sure, because guess what? It's July. I get that. But something's going to have to go completely wrong. They're going to have to lose the exact games that they need to lose, right? If they win the games they have to win and they lose some other games, things could still work out. If they lose to the top 3 teams in the Big 12, you're going to have no tiebreakers. it's just not going to work out. If the top three are, hypothetically speaking, let's just say K-State, Colorado, and Arizona State, because I don't think BYU will be in that conversation, but maybe they will. We talked about who their backups would be, and they might seem like they're pretty valid. So we'll see about that. But hypothetically, let's say it's Colorado, K-State, and Arizona State. If Iowa State loses all three of those games, like probably not going to be in the Big 12 championship game, but that's just literally by chance of happening to lose those three. If they lose three different games, do they still make it? Maybe. You just never know how it works out. Now, I don't think Iowa State, I believe I had their floor at 8 wins, so I suppose they could lose 3-4 games, whatever. But I don't think that it's going to be the case. The more we talk about this on Farmageddon Fridays with Christian Rao, the more I'm fired up about this Iowa State team. The more I genuinely think that they can dominate every team they face. Now, it is going to be a difficult challenge the way that their schedule plays out. They have to go overseas and then play one of the toughest teams in the Big 12 right off the bat. You don't get a warm-up game, then you come home, and Rocco believes they might have the toughest first 4 games, including obviously Kansas State, in the history of Iowa State. Like, there is a valid argument there. It's not exactly a cakewalk of a schedule. Does that make the team better? Maybe. Yes. But it's not going to be an easy. I just like to not pick them as a stock option. I would have taken them over 3 teams probably on this list. Personally, I don't hate the Utah pick just because it's like if you buy something worth 1 penny and it's worth like $1 at the end of the year, that's like what, 60 times your money or something like that, or 100 times. Is that? I'm thinking seconds. Man, I always mix those up. That really is not a great look. All right. Anyways, my point being, like, yeah, you can go from basically 0 to 100 with Utah here. I don't love Clemson. Like, from the perspective of picking a team and buying stock in them, you want ROI, right? You want that return. Don't pick something that's at 99 cents to get to the dollar. That doesn't make sense. So no Clemson for me, no Washington for me, no North Carolina for me. I think Iowa State's better than all 3 of those teams. If you were able to somehow buy stock in a college football team, I wouldn't pick those 3 teams over Iowa State any day of the week. Utah, maybe. Michigan State, Michigan. I mean, maybe. National champion a few years ago. Maybe. I don't know. I couldn't believe that Iowa State wasn't on this list. And now he's not saying that Iowa State won't be successful. He's not saying that at all. It's just literally not what this list is, and I understand that. But I think Iowa State has probably one of the most exciting upsides this season. I absolutely think that's true. And will it pan out? Hopefully. Depends on if, obviously there's wood right here. I would knock on it if I were to say what I would say, but I'm not going to because of how last year went. Like, that's going to play a role. It's going to come down to, does the ball bounce your way? Is it a luck year where sometimes you need the ball to bounce your way to make a conference championship? That's just the truth of the matter. Does the ball bounce their way? Do they win the games they need to win? Does the weather, there's all these factors. Just me personally. What do you think? Is Iowa State one of the best teams to buy stock in this season? I think so. I think by far they have one of the highest upsides this year. By far. One of the highest ceilings. I think they could definitely win at least one college football playoff game. And I think you will be shocked at how the culture will shift because of last year. And then this year, if we see, which I think we will, major success. I mean, we're talking 11 wins in the regular season. This is what I think could happen. 11 wins. You win the conference championship. First time since Notre Dame, I think, is the only school that hasn't won one more recently than us, I believe. I just saw that graphic. Go to the college football playoff. You win 2 games. Now Iowa State it's not the same. It's not the same. And maybe they make a freaking best, whatever this is, best to buy stock in if they win 2 playoff games based on his logic. I don't know if I agree with that. That's just me, though. If you made it this far, shout out to you. Hit subscribe down below. It's completely free. Helps us prove that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_Marv. I always check out everything you guys send over there, and I can answer questions there, too. Just so you know. That being said, until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.